Erev Tov, Erev Tov.
Erev Tov.
Erev Tov.
Come to
We were singing that.
we're here once again. Pesach is a little over a week away.
I guess I better start cleaning, huh?
And perhaps to put things in perspective, the tradition has been in the Jewish people for thousands of years. The rabbi teaches the laws of Pesach on the Shabbat before Pesach, because that's more than enough time to get everything ready for Pesach. The same way our rabbis instituted that you search for chametz the night before Pesach. You burn it the morning of Pesach, and a few hours later you rid yourself of it and you're good to go. Oh, but maybe they expected you to be preparing for weeks and weeks on end, and only that's the last checking that you do in your house, like Jews do today. And this would be an impossibility in Halacha, because if your house was already clean for Pesach, and you know, this year too, if you know that there's no chametz inside of your house, saying Hashem's name and the blessing of searching for chametz would be a blessing in vain. And if you put out those pieces, it doesn't help you, because you know that they're there and you put them there, and you can't obligate yourself in a blessing that you're not obligated in. And therefore, this entire thing of months and months and weeks and days of cleaning before Pesach is not a halachic truth. Rather, it's a Jewish social norm that has made Pesach a disaster of a holiday, has taken away the freedom for people to enjoy this holiday, and has caused more shlom bayit issues than any other Jewish practice in the entire history of the Jewish people. And because of that, it's very important that when you study the laws of Pesach, you realize you have to be very careful with the things that you do, the things that you don't do, and the things that you do just because you don't know any better. And some of the things I'm going to tell you today, you've heard from me before. Other things you haven't. And other things I haven't heard you say before. And this is going to be an organic class. I don't have an agenda. I'm going to go through some of the main highlights of things we need to know. But I wanted to open up the discussion about Pesach with an argument that started in the year 1909. With something that's pretty relevant till today. And perhaps will clarify where it is
the
that...
foundation of Tel Aviv.
This, of course, very good. What happened here in the story of Pesach and what ramifications it has for us today. The first year I gave a Pesach class in San Diego, I knew that it would cause waves. And therefore, I made it very obvious that this class was only going to be for Sfaradim, and people who were not Sfaradim should not learn anything from my class that was Halacha L'Maaseh, that was practical. And it was an incorrect thing that I did, because it's not true. And what I'm going to say tonight is not just for Sfaradim, it's not the truth. And this is for Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, who accept both the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, the rulings of the Ramah, as applicable to the Jewish people. You see, Judaism is not separated based on an ethnic line, but rather there are different philosophies that exist in the Jewish people. And the philosophy that I try to espouse when it comes to the laws of Pesach are not only Sephardic philosophies. There are many Ashkenazi rabbis that were on board with the same philosophies, and many Sephardic rabbis that were not on board with this philosophy. And so to draw a line down the middle, this country and that country, it doesn't help. It's not the truth. It's easier, it's more comfortable, because I could say, oh, you know, that makes me uncomfortable, but it's only for the Sfardis. Or, that makes me uncomfortable, that's only for the Ashkenazim. That's a very childish way to understand Torah and Halacha in general. To know there's an ideology behind Psikat Halacha. And it almost sounds heretical to say this, but our rabbis are very clear that you're not allowed to study Torah from anybody who you can't rely on their personality. If you have a rabbi who knows the whole Torah by heart, but you know that he's a thief, he steals money from people, our rabbi says it's forbidden to study from him. Because inevitably you learn, he infuses in his teachings things that allow him to be who it is that he is. And the wording of a rabbi is, Imen ha'arav domeh le'malach Hashem tzivot. If the rabbi is not comparable to the angel of Hashem, al yivakshu Torah mepihu. Do not ask for Torah from his mouth. Because it's not just, Torah is not just a text. It's not just a thing that's written in a book and a code of laws. In the words of Rav Kook, it's the first generation he ever saw, where you have Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars, that have no Yirat Shamayim, that have no awe of heaven. It's the first thing. It's a new idea where this is all technicality. It's all just what it says in the book. It's not about me. And you'll find sometimes that poskim that are overly stringent, you look at their personalities, and you'll see that that was also their outlook on the world in general. And poskim that were very slow to being strict and very lenient and you'll see that's also the way they spoke in their own life. That's the way they treated people in their own life. And it's inevitable that a person will infuse his Torah or her Torah with their personality. I want to analyze literally a war that almost burned down the city of Jerusalem, halachically, in 1909. Rav Kook, alav shalom, chief rabbi of Israel. Rav Kook was dealing, I believe at the time he might have been the rabbi of Tel Aviv Yafo. I'm not sure if yet he was the chief rabbi of Israel. Rav Kook was approached by a man, his last name was Breslov, Mr. Breslov, who had asked him for a hechsher, kosher certification for Pesach, on his sesame oil factory in Yafo. He had a new machine that had never been used by the Jewish community that could make sesame oil without getting the sesame seeds wet with any kind of liquid. Rather, it was a machine that could press the sesame seeds and bring out pure sesame oil without any water mixed into it. I'll explain why this is important. Sesame in the Ashkenazi community is considered kitniot. Things that Ashkenazim don't eat, even though the Halacha does not demand that of them. Why? Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, in his Zigrot Moshe, points out that there is no logical reason for why kitniot are prohibited. He explains. There are some people who say that it's because of the sacks of flour that things came in. Maybe they used a wheat sack for beans, and then maybe those beans have flour on them. Moshe Feinstein points out either that's not relevant today, or you could have washed those beans off, or anything that could have come out with this. That's not the reason. The big reason is because you can grind these things into flour, and it looks like wheat flour. And the truth is that there are some Jews that, for that reason, don't eat potato starch on Pesach. My father-in-law is custom from his home. I don't know if he still does it, but in Yerushalayim, for sure, the custom among the Badatz, Edah Charedit community is not to use potato products on Pesach at all. They are considered kitniot because you can make flour out of them. Imagine what you'd be left to eat here if that was the rule. And Moshe Feinstein points out that can't be the rule because there are so many other things that we use on Pesach that if you dry it, you can grind it up into flour, and that can't be the reason. And it goes through 4 reasons, if I'm not mistaken. I brought this in my book of why kitniot don't have any reason, any logical reasoning, and therefore he comes to the following conclusion. Moshe says you cannot create new categories of kitniot. The reason? Because you don't know why these things are prohibited. So whatever the rabbis in Europe prohibited, that's okay. So the Jews of Europe accept that. But there is no criteria that they left behind on how to prohibit new things, because we don't know why it's prohibited. And Rav Moshe Feinstein is a pretty big rabbi, I believe, that the world could rely on, says, so whatever they didn't eat in Europe, that's prohibited, but the rest of it can't be. When Rav Moshe Feinstein heard that people didn't use peanut oil on Pesach, he was blown away. He said, we didn't have peanuts in Russia. He says, how could it be that peanuts are kitniot? But again, the world chooses to listen to their heart over their mind, and such decisions are made without the consultation of the poskim. Rav Kook said, listen, sesame seeds are kitniot. That's true. I don't know why. Like I said, we don't know why. The reason that sesame oil, or any oil, an oil of kitniot, in Halacha it's called mei kitniot, or shemen kitniot, is prohibited, is because of the fear that in the process of making the oil you had to soak these beans, and if there was any flour that was in those beans, they would, or sesame would have become chametz already, and therefore Rav Kook said the whole reason for prohibiting sesame oil on Pesach is only because maybe it came in contact with water in the oil process. He spoke to this Mr. Breslov, he examined his machinery, and said there's no water in this process, the sesame oil is 100% kosher, and he gave him a heter, a teudat hechsher. He said, this is not just kosher, this is kosher lemehadrin, min hamehadrin, he wrote, for the most strict people. And he says, there is no room for a person to be strict on Pesach to not consume sesame oil. There is no, he says, even the person who's very particular about the laws of Pesach will not find any reason to be strict on this product. In step Rav Kook's biggest opponents. In Yerushalayim, there was a Beit Din called the Badatz. They still exist today. In fact, many American Jews, when they go to Israel, will only eat their food. I'm not going to get into the politics of this kashrut. This Beit Din opened up a kashrut department at the request of the Satmar Rebbe, Alav Shalom, from Rabbi Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, Alav Shalom, because he said that Rav Kook cannot be trusted with any religious matters, because Rav Kook was a heretic. He literally, in the words of the Satmar Rebbe, puts up idols in the sanctuaries of Hashem and destroys the entire generation of youth And the title that he chooses to give him is not the title rabbi. There's nowhere in there is the title rabbi. Rather, he says, Ish tsar ve'oyev hara hazeh, this evil, torturous man. The only time we have those words in our entire Tanakh is referring to Haman. Haman. That's what he calls Rav Kook. And he says, I demand from you to build a new Beit Din in Jerusalem that will undermine Rav Kook. And that's exactly what the Badatz is. It still exists for the same purpose today, though it's much watered down, the purpose of it. But if you ask most rabbis in the world, oh, that's the best hechsher in Israel. I have a hard time that somebody with that ideology could be the best of anything, in anywhere. It could be that it's a kosher supervision, yes, but the best, I wouldn't give them that award. Not this year, and definitely not in 1909. This Badatz belonged to a Hasidic Ashkenazi branch of Judaism in Jerusalem. And they were really the elders of the rabbis in Jerusalem. Rav Kook was a newcomer. He was not a Yerushalmi rabbi. He was a rabbi that came from Europe to Israel. And though he was the chief rabbi, let's suffice it to say that they didn't view him as the chief rabbi. They were the chief rabbis. They immediately sent a letter to Rav Kook. And in this letter, they have a complaint, two main complaints. The complaints are not halachic in nature. The first complaint is, there is a hierarchy in the land of Israel. We are greater than you. We are older than you. We have been here much longer than you have. And if you want to put out such a novel ruling as allowing sesame seed oil, contrary to our previous decrees, you have to ask us first. You can't make this decision on your own. It's an absolute chutzpah for you to not consult with us first. One. The second thing they read in their letter is, even if you are right, and even if all your arguments are halachically sound, you're opening up the door for the movements that undermine Hashem's Torah. They were referring to the Reform movement. They're going to say, see, there's a rabbi who allows sesame seed oil. Soon they're going to start eating sesame seeds. Next they're going to eat rice and corn. And before you know it, they're going to be eating bread on Pesach. You are undermining the entire system of Halacha because you're allowing, he called them the potzei geder, those who break down the fences of our rabbis. You are giving them the freedom to do so. Now Rav Kook writes back. It's fascinating that we even have this correspondence, because this correspondence is not published in the classic writings of Rav Kook nor of the Badatz. Rav Kook writes back a few things, and I'm not, the order of the letters is irrelevant. Rav Kook says to the first thing, he said, I'm not aware that there is a hierarchy of rabbis in Jerusalem. He said that even if there was a hierarchy of rabbis in Jerusalem, where on earth have you found a situation which if a Beit Din, a valid Beit Din, is consulted about a matter, and the matter is so obviously permitted to the Beit Din, it's not something they're not sure about, it's obviously permitted to the Beit Din, that they are not allowed to issue their own halachic ruling. Where do you find such a place? Where do you find such a source for something? That I would have to consult with you if my Beit Din found that this is absolutely permitted. If it was a question, and it's gonna, but it's not a question. He said you're even aware that it's not a question because your wording is even if you're right. And second, he said, how do politics play a role in psikat halacha? Is that the way we rule halachic matters? Is we what if and what happens and you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna undermine. So that's not a halachic calculation. That's a political calculation. And it's amazing, Rav Kook goes back and forth with them many, many letters, and over again, he brings up a point which Rav Kook knew who his opponents were. He knew that they were anti-Zionists. He knew that they were not fond of the founding of a state of Israel in the land of Israel. Yet he kept on bringing a point saying, we have a Jew who has a factory in the land of Israel, who's doing something that no one else has ever done here before. And he came to us to ask for a kosher certification. He says there are many Jews who live here that couldn't care less about kashrut. And what you're telling him is, the rabbinic establishment doesn't care about your livelihood. They're willing to shut down your factory. They're willing to shut down your sales. And all for what? Not for a halachic reason. Because we're fighting with Rav Kook. Because we don't like him. He said, put aside your honor and say that for the building of the land of Israel, the rabbis have to be behind the Jews who have businesses in this country. And he writes it so many times, you almost wonder, Rav Kook, don't you realize that these rabbis couldn't care less about the people living in the country? This is their entire premise, is they don't care about the building of the country. But he keeps driving the point home, not understanding why it's so hard for them to accept. But there's one sentence here that Rav Kook writes in his letters. This sentence, when I read it a number of years ago, it absolutely changed my approach to psikat halacha. And it showed me that in the Ashkenazi camp, There were such minds as well. I always quote for you Rav Uziel and Rav Masas, but you're going to find here Rav Kook, even though he's a very strict posek, his logic here is brilliant. Rav Kook writes to them, first, that if you're strict about things that don't make logical sense, the community will say that the words of our rabbis are jokes. Oh, look how crazy these rabbis are. They're so extreme. And this is aval chalila lanu. Sorry. Rav Kook argues with them and said, how could it be that on a custom you're going to be so strict? It's not even a halacha. So we both know that kitniyot is not a halacha. So how could you be so strict about something that's not actually a Jewish law? But his last point, it says, v'chalila lanu nachshov. It's forbidden for us to think shalidei ma she'anachnu matirim et hamutar, that just because we permit things that are truly permitted, ma shelo haya davar zeh b'mtziut al ma sheyachol minhag shel isur. He said, we never had a situation where you could create sesame oil without contact of water. So there cannot be a custom to prohibit such sesame oil. He says, so therefore I'm not permitting something which was previously forbidden. I'm permitting something which is absolutely permitted, says Rav Kook. He says, you're going to tell me that I'm going to open up the gates for those who want to break down the walls of Judaism. Chalila said, God forbid. Adrabah, I said to the contrary. When an entire Jewish people sees shemashu mutar anachnu matirim, that the things that are truly permitted, we tell them that it's okay. We tell them you're allowed to do this. Az yaminu biyoter shekol ma she'anachnu osrim mipnei shekach din Torah. They'll believe us that when we say that something is not allowed, that it really is not allowed. If they'll suspect us that even the things that are allowed, we tell them no, then the things that are really not allowed, they're not going to listen to us about them. So you are losing the faith in the eyes of the people. But if we prohibit things like this that never existed before, so you can't prohibit them based on a custom, there was no such custom. They'll say that the rabbis, they just like to make up strictures. They'll say the rabbis would like to make up their own stringencies. They couldn't care about their communities. Says Rav Kook, to the contrary, if you show the people that you don't care about them, that you're strict even in matters that don't need you to be strict, so that's when the people are going to lose their faith in you, and that's what's going to allow people to come and undermine the Torah. But if they trust us, that they know that if it's really allowed, they would have told us it was allowed. And if they're saying no, it's because there's no way that it's not allowed. He said, you are at the verge of making Judaism into a mockery. He says, you're going to show them that you don't really care about Halacha. And that's going to undermine the Jewish people's integrity and the integrity of the rabbis in the eyes of the Jewish people. And so perhaps, without belaboring this fact further, the idea that I wish to bring out is there are two kinds of poskim, two kinds of rabbis. Those who trust their communities and those who don't trust their communities. It's as simple as that. And it could be that for whatever reasons there were rabbis in certain countries that trusted their communities more than rabbis in other countries. This anarchy towards rabbis, this undermining of rabbis, was much more prevalent in Europe than it was in Sephardic countries. Why? I don't know, you have to ask a sociologist why it was that when rabbis in Sephardic countries made rules, you never found the rebels going up against them. Why in Ashkenazi countries it was so common to find even other rabbis undermining other rabbis. I don't have a good answer to. But it's not a Sephardic Ashkenazi divide. It could be circumstances. It could be that the world around Ashkenazi Jewry was also in this whole state of uprising and revolting against the church and revolting against religion and secularism. That could have been what was going on and had nothing to do with the rabbis and the people. It doesn't make a difference. When you sit here today, you have to ask, when I'm going to learn Halacha, am I learning it from somebody who trusts me or from somebody who does not trust me? And if the answer, I'm studying Halacha, you can bring a chair from there right here. If I'm learning Halacha from somebody who does not trust me, then what's the point of learning Halacha from them? They're going to tell me, it's okay, but it's better you don't because you're not smart enough to figure out how to do this on your own. It's better to do this in your kitchen because it's too complicated for you to understand the other way. That kind of education towards Jews tells me, I don't consider you to be such an intelligent human being. I don't think that you're capable of following Halacha on your own. And that's not the way we try to teach Halacha here at Kehillat HaShamayim. And these halachot are relevant to anybody who would like a rabbi who believes in them, because I believe in you, And I ask that you listen to the things that I'm telling you. And if I tell you that something's not allowed, it's because it's really not allowed, and not because I feel like it's not allowed. If something is allowed, it's because it really is allowed. And what about the other people who say that it's not allowed? I can never answer this question of what about the other people. I don't know what other people. I don't know why they say what they say. And while you're at those other people, I can give you a list of questions you should ask them also, and you'll see what their answers are, and you probably won't like them either. So let's not go into this. Oh, but I heard this rabbi say. I'm sure he said it. I'm sure there's a reason for why he said it. I'm not here to undermine him. This is my community. He has his community. I wouldn't go to his community and shake things up. But in our community, I think it's okay for us to have our own standards of halachot that follow Jewish law. My last point about customs, and that's going to bring us into the world of halacha, is Torah is truest at its most original source. If there's something that says in the Torah X, and the Talmud says Y, and another rabbi says Z, what's going to be the biggest truth is what's written in the Torah. What about our rabbis? I'm not here to tell you that our rabbis twisted the Torah. But in anything in the world, the closer back we are to Mount Sinai, the closer we are to the truth. If we have a situation in which the Torah tells us something, and the Mishnah tells us something, and the Talmud tells us something, and the Rambam tells us something, and the Shulchan Aruch tells us something, and they all agree, and then there's a custom, and this custom says, well, you know, we have a different understanding. That's a splinter off of what the Torah actually said. If you want to follow it, I'm not going to tell you not to, but that's the most original source. All Jews once used to do such a thing. I once got a phone call from a relative of mine who told me, how could it be that you told somebody who's Hasidic that they can do something on Pesach that the Hasidim don't let? So I told him, I said, listen, I didn't tell it exactly like that. But if we had to put this down on paper, this Hasid, before he was a Hasid, 300 years ago when the movement started, he was an Ashkenazi Jew, like all the other Ashkenazi Jews. And Ashkenazi Jews are a group of Jews that have been around for 2,000 years. And between a 2,000-year-old Ashkenazi custom and a 300-year-old Hasidic custom, I feel very comfortable telling a Hasidic person that he could follow a 2,000-year-old Ashkenazi custom because that's more original of a source than the one that came up 300 years ago. Will I undermine that which came up 300 years ago? It's not my place. It's not my place. There's a famous letter from Rabbi Herzog. Rabbi Herzog was the chief rabbi of Israel, previously the chief rabbi of Ireland. And somebody asked him, how could it be that the Baal Shem Tov and the first Lubavitcher Rebbe made up their own Sidurim? Who gave them the right to change the order of prayer? And he said, that's a fascinating question. I don't have a good answer for you. I don't know who gave them the right. But I'll tell you that with people like the Baal Shem Tov, we don't ask questions. He did something. If you're a student of his, he has big shoulders that you can rely on him. Do it. But I'm not going to tell everybody else in the world that they should do that also. But you can't come to me and say, how could it be that the Rabbi so-and-so... The Rabbi so-and-so was not a criminal, he wasn't a crook, and he was a leader of an entire Jewish community. He had his reasons for why he did things. If we don't follow them, that's okay. But just because we don't follow them doesn't mean that we undermine who they are and what they stand for. And I think those things have to be very clear. That being said, let's jump into the world of Shulchan Aruch. Have a Nesiat Tovah.